Hi everyone and welcome to this week's project. This week I'm turning a banksiapod in resin. And in this shot I'm using sandpaper to scuff up the resin that's already cured. And there's already resin in there because I started the project a couple months ago, ran out of resin, so I put it aside. And so now I'm regrouping and mixing up the resin here. I'll put some more blue in, trying to match the color of the original using epoxy blue and mixing thoroughly, and I will pour it in and let it cure. And if you're wondering, I did not use a pressure pot on this project. I did use a heat gun to pop some bubbles that came up, and I did not film that part. Here I'm just trying to get some resin in some of the holes in the banksiapod, and using a hot glue gun to make sure the edges are sealed. So it's fully cured and I'm demolding it here, which is always a fun, interesting part. I had a little bit of trouble with this one. I don't think I filmed at all, but obviously was successful in the end. I used the bandsaw to cut off part of the bottom of the wood that I couldn't get off. Here I'm using the belt sander to just soften the edges a little bit to save on some of the tools, rounding them over. And this is a rubber stick that cleans the belt sander and the disc sander if you're interested in it. I do have a link in the description of the video for the product on Amazon. I had trouble finding one, so just sharing it with everyone. I had seen someone else using it and I thought it was pretty cool. Using a center finder to find the center on both sides, both ends, and then I will use a live center in the lathe until I get a chance to make a tenon. And I'm starting with the Easy Wood Tools Negative Rake round tip. And I keep switching tools quite a bit until I get it round. You're going from carbide to traditional bulk gouge here. Just kept taking very thin passes to try to get it round. And starting with some sanding here, I sanded from 100 grit all the way up through the micromesh grits, the micromesh pads. Really work great on the resin. And using some denatured alcohol to just see what it will look like when it's finished, see how it's coming along. And if you noted there's a little line in it, and it may be where the two resins were poured at different times. And I was a little worried when turning it, worried that it might crack or, fly off the lathe, but it was pretty solid. I kept checking. Here I'm wet sanding 1200 grit here. And starting with the micro mesh. And using the Axe polishing paste to polish it. Putting it on quite liberally. You really don't have to put it on that thick. I think I got a little bit too much on the paper towel. And here I'm buffing it off, and it does give a great shine. And here I'm starting with the parting tool to part off what would be a top for the container or vase or box, whatever you want to call it. And just going slow here, taking small passes, trying to get the width of the cut wider than the parting tool, which is always helpful and safer. Here I've put a Forstner bit in the drill truck, and I'm going to start hollowing it out here. And as I mentioned just a second ago with the text on the screen, the top that I had just parted off didn't make it. it it parted off fine. I didn't drop it or anything like that, but when I put it in the chuck to turn it, it was probably my fault. It wasn't the resin or the banksiapod. It just didn't turn out. So I aborted that idea, and I'm just making an open top vase container, and which is fine. Using some sanding sealer for the inside, making sure that the Banksia pod is sealed really well. And I wanted to mention too that this is the first time I've turned a Banksia pod, and I had someone who watches the channel send it to me, and I am forgetting his name at the moment, but thank you very much. I know it's been a while since you sent it, but here it is. So here I have it in a jam chuck, and I'm just giving it a final polish before I take it off the lathe. And although I don't film it, I do take that little nub off on the belt sander. And you'll see some stills here in a minute. So I wanted to take a minute and say thank you very much for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, please comment, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. Thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Peace out.